Welcome to I Change the Narrative, a podcast for and about Black men, inspiring, supporting, and empowering Black men and Black boys. Before we get started with the conversation, I want to ask our guests to briefly tell us about yourselves and the work that you're involved in that lends itself to why we are here having this conversation today. Starting with Tony, you're up.
My name is Tony Roberts. My organization is called Theater Saves Lives. Basically working in the community school system, using theater as the platform to teach life lessons, critical thinking, how to become published authors, Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you, Tony. Stretch.
Yes. Thanks for having me. My name is Stretch Garrett. I'm a radio personality here in the DMV at WHUR. Also a author, just my first book back there, Last Request. And thank you. And also I'm a media manager for the Food and Drug Administration through the Office of Regulatory Affairs. So I wear many hats, but being creative is my first love and will always be my first love.
Awesome. Thank you. And Tyrone.
Hi, thank you, Nika, for having me. My name is Tyrone Baker Jr., and I'm a producer, production manager in the reality TV world. And I also own my own company called Recap Creative, where we create original content and trying to help change the narrative.
Nick, thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. My name is Nick Reeves. I am also in production with reality TV, as well as my own sports, entertainment, personal training, dealing with the youth and adults, just working on building their minds to see more than just the physical, more so the behind the scenes of this industry or the world.
Awesome, thank you. Brandon.
Greetings. Thank you for having me. Brandon Frame from Connecticut, currently reside in the Bronx, New York. I am the founder of the Black Man Can Incorporated. Also the director of social emotional learning at the Urban Assembly, author, and definitely love creating and living that world, and excited for our conversation today as we just talk about being Black male creatives and empowering and changing the world.
Thank you. Tyler.
Yes, my name is Tyler Archie. I'm a young Black creative working in production in LA, and I try to carry that Blackness with pride every day and find a way to make it work better for me in this country.
Thank you so much. So glad to have you all on the show, and we thank you for being invested in the cause. Today's topic is Black men, Black male and creative. How Black male creatives can change the narrative. So, as image makers, platform builders, conversation managers, and storytellers, you all are responsible for contributing to the images, messages, and perceptions that circulate within our society and culture. As you know, these images and messages have tremendous power. They have the power to influence today, as well as generations after us. Most importantly, the images that you all create and choose to circulate create mental associations that define how we perceive each other and the world around us. As Black men in the advertising, marketing, communications, media, and entertainment sectors, you are also responsible for creating and circulating the very images that either contribute to the perceptions that either influence whether someone lives or dies. So what are some of the solutions as content producers and leaders of agencies? What are the solutions to changing the images of old and coming up with a new narrative for Black men, either in media or in the entertainment industry? Anyone can take it away.
I think I think there's a lot of things that could be done. And you know, for me, I think it always starts with us directly. I've been blessed to be in this industry for almost 10 years now. And when I first started working in this industry, every set I was on, I'm literally the only Black person that's on set, that's cast, that's crew, that's post, that's everything. And for me, I just thought that was the norm, you know, until I came and moved to Atlanta. And, you know, I'm seeing all of us everywhere, you know, so we have that power to change it. And what I mean by that is I'm a producer and I'm a production manager, so I have the opportunity to hire people in that position. So if I have that opportunity, we've got to be able to start taking those opportunities. Even if the person doesn't know what they're doing, we've got to be able to take those opportunities and start training them, teaching them, showing them how we do it, because they're not going to learn if they don't have those opportunities to do it. You know, I was blessed to be able to meet a line producer that literally took me under her wing and taught me every single thing that I needed to know and guided me. Hey, move like this, move like that, do this, do that. That way I'm able to learn instead of someone just saying, oh, we don't have those positions, you know. So I think it really starts with us at the very beginning.
Yeah, to build on Tyrone there, I think excuse me, that's important. I think one one to his first point, just talking about being like he started as like the only Black male in certain spaces, right? So one thing that we have to do collectively as Black men and as Black people is not be happy to be the only one, right? So like there are people who when they get to a certain place and they're like the token Negro, they're like I made it, and not necessarily think about opening the door for others, right? And so we know that if it took us 20 steps to get somewhere, we need to make sure that the next generation or the next person, it takes them 10. So I think it's important that we look at that. And one of the guiding principles for why the Black Man Can came to be was once you make an observation, you have an obligation. And so all of us, we make these observations every day around things that need to change or things we need to improve, specifically around Black male imagery. And so it's important that we take on a role to make it an obligation to actually do what we can to change the role and really deciding what that looks like for you, right? Like me, I created the Black Man Can, somebody else is mentoring, somebody else is like, you know what, I'm gonna give philanthropically to an organization doing that work. So I think also it's finding what lane that you feel best in and not putting the whole burden on yourself to do everything, but find where your talents and tools allow for you to make a difference and make a change, and then make it there, and then support in other areas that you see other people making change as well.
I think one of the most powerful things in this country is content, and its influence is massive. And if you want to talk about scale, one of the best solutions and things as a community we need to do is just when we create, we need to be intentional about the characters we create and how we source and pull talent, specifically talking about production for, you know, features and series. We have to cast intentionally and better, but we also have to craft characters that when they go out to these streaming platforms around the world, that people are seeing authentic, positive depictions of Black men. And then we have to, when bad roles come out or bad characters, we've got to publicly denounce that stuff. We can't shy away from it and just say it is what it is. We got to let people know that it's not okay, because when those depictions sit, and they've been sitting for decades, you know, people that don't have personal relationships within our community assume that's the normal. They assume that's who we are. So we have to first let them know that's not who we are. Then we have to show them who we are. And I think at scale, that is the best and most powerful thing, is we just have to start making content with us in it, being, you know, positive fathers, positive husbands, positive role models, mentors, business owners, and things like that.
So for me, to piggyback off everybody else and to add, I think it starts with us being the example.
Yeah.
Kids don't just have to dribble a basketball. They don't just have to throw a football. We need to let them know at a young age, start your own business, start your own production company. Let them see that there's more to being a Black man than just sports. And a lot of times we don't do that. So we have to be the example by going into these communities, going into these schools, telling these kids about these other opportunities that they can have other than just playing sports.
I'll piggyback. I think one of the most important things, like Tyrone was saying, is starts with ourselves. We have to conduct ourselves strategically and professionally. If we don't do that, then that narrative is going to change. When we're speaking to the youth or those of our who are older than us, they're going to look at us as I don't know, sometimes as a threat. As a black male, we are considered a threat. Like, what type of threat, positive or negative? So I think when we are conducting ourselves outside of our norm, we still have to wear that cape and saying that, okay, we are positive people. We are somebody who has a voice. We want to change the outlook of what you're accustomed to seeing. So things we have to be, I guess, have our switch on more times than none. I guess promote that narrative or promote that positivity so that others can, I guess, feel comfortable going into the field or wanting to learn and evolve and advance.
Excellent points. Do you think that, well, is it that you all as Black men now have to overcorrect what you're doing, overcorrect these old narratives? Is that the key at this point in time?
I think personally, energy spent on overcorrecting might be too much because so much is out there that you can't take it all back and you can't wash it all away. That's why I believe moving forward, every new thing that starts to come out and surface, you correct on that as it happens to nip it in the bud. But I think reaching into the past to overcorrect is too far. We just have to be intentional about the way we build from here now.
Yeah. I agree with what Tyler said. You know, I think if we start trying to overcorrect things, we're not going to be intentional. We're not going to move to, in a sense, to where people can actually see what we're trying to do. We're going to end up keep messing up, and we're going to keep having to try to overcorrect instead of being our true selves at the end of the day. That's not saying go in there and act a fool or act crazy or anything like that, but really put an effort forward to what you're trying to do. What are you trying to accomplish at the end of the day? You know, because if I go on set every single day and I'm constantly worried about how I'm moving or how I'm saying things or how I'm acting, then the people that I'm trying to inspire around me are going to look at me like, I never know if this dude is hot or cold. I never know what to do because one moment he's saying this, one moment he's saying that. You know, so yes, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be corrected and we need to learn new things, but I think we got to go move forward at this point in time.
Hey, I think when you try to overcorrect things, it stifles the authenticity of who you are as an individual. So, like just pretty much what Tyrone and what Tyler said is just the fact that when you want to try to overcompensate by trying to fit into a particular narrative for whomever you're in the room with, just be authentic, be who you are, because I mean, obviously, who you are led you and put you in that position. So there's no need to overcorrect something that, you know, I think at the end of the day stifles who you are as a person.
Yeah, one thing I like to say, I know that it's changed the narrative. And I actually sometimes don't even say that anymore. I say it's controlling the narrative. And so that speaks to like where Tyrone sits and Tyler and everybody here in terms of certain things that they do that allows for us to control the narrative as opposed to really working to change it. It's controlling it. So we make sure that when it comes to shows, the way that characters are developed, that's not, for me, I don't sit in that space specifically, but there are people that are, like, we make sure that those doors are open so that when characters are being developed, they're authentic to the range that represents Black men when shows are being developed, et cetera. So I think it's really thinking about how we continue to control the narrative and showcase, or when I think about TV, that's using media, right? As a white male, just using that, right? You can, every type of white, for a little white boy, he can go on, watch television and see any type of white male he wants to be. If he wants to be goofy, he wants to be a doctor, he wants to be a lawyer, or whatever it may be, you'll find it. He can find it in media. But like a little Black boy, in terms of the abundance of those images, he doesn't get a chance to see a Black male in all the different places. Have we seen growth over the year? Absolutely. You can watch This Is Us and you see this. You can watch The Good Doctor and Hill Harper's playing the surgeon of the hospital and stuff like that. But we have to continue to create more opportunities for Black men to be casted in different roles and characters to be developed that speak to like the authenticity of who we are. And I appreciate the growth that's happening. Like I think about Netflix, right? And like as a platform, and like you can go on there, you see Black men in a host of different characters and narratives. So I think again, it's controlling the narrative, creating the content we want to see that represents us, and then in those spaces with large productions and stuff, having screenwriters and writers, and I don't know all the terms for everybody. The media people know a little bit more, but making sure that we're in those roles so that we have authentic Black males represented in the media and character development.
Right. To those that are in production, how do you combat the diversity problem so that these stories can be told truthfully? Like, because I know you've had experiences of, where certain characters are just not, it's not delivering a good message to the audience or a positive message to the audience. So what do you do? What is the solution to combating that diversity problem?
I have a quick point to add with that. Just with where it comes to narrative projects, and this is talking about creative execution. One of the ways that you can mitigate that is instead of trying to put so much energy into intentionally creating such an amazing Black character that's so positive, that can become a hard task because you don't want anything negative to come from it. Just take a great character that exists on page that you can just see reading, that you don't see the color, but you see it's a great character. Take that character and make them Black. And then you're giving a Black person the opportunity to just be a great person on screen. People can say that's a great Black person, but I think sometimes talking about overcorrecting, we make it a little bit too complicated and too hard. The execution can be often much, much, much simpler. Take a great character, let them be Black. That does a lot right there. People consume that passively, and they're passively being persuaded as just seeing a Black person be normal.
I love that point. Now, the most recent thing that I watched that's like a perfect example of that was actually Bridgerton. And so to watch it, and first to a time period where you probably can't find too many movies where Black people are casted in 1800 British, context. But the Queen of England was a Black woman. The Duke was Black. Like, if that wasn't a Shondaland production, right? It was maybe somebody else. They probably wouldn't have casted Black people. So I think to Tyler's point, I think that really hits home to just see us casted in different roles that just so people just see us the human side of us in the various roles. And that was a great point.
Yeah, I agree on everything that Tyler and Brandon said. I think we've got to get to a point where it's not taboo to see a man of color or woman of color in a leading role in any type of movie or show or anything like that. I also think when we do get these opportunities to be on set, and we see that we might be the only person of color there, we have to stop settling for those jobs, and we have to stop taking those type of jobs as well. And that's not me saying take food out of your mouth or money out of your pocket, but I've been guilty of working on shows to where I know these shows aren't going to be positive for our culture or positive for the Black man, or it's going to put us in a position to show who we really are. So it's really not settling and speaking up at the same time as well. If you know that you are in a position to hire other people, bring on someone that that can support you, that is of color. If you are in a position to cast as well, don't just look at it like Tyra said of let's create a role for a great Black person. Read the script and cast a Black person. So it's about not just settling either.
But we're not that far removed from just from the era of Blaxploitation where we had to create our own. You know what I mean? Because in the sense of the 70s, whether you're watching, Cotton Comes to Harlem or Which Way Is Up or Saturday, whatever, all those great films put, great Black actors in great prominent roles that made it so that people of our ilk would be able to go to the theater and see these men and these women in positions where, of course, back in the 70s, we would never get a chance to see them play the role of a quote unquote pseudo James Bond, or even though that we added in those layers of comedy, but it was still drama, and it still was in a positive sort of light that allowed people like myself as a kid growing up in the the late 70s, the early 80s to see these things and be like, oh man, I want to be Sidney Poitier. I want watch this Sidney Poitier when Guess Who Comes to Dinner, or in the heat of the night, slapping a white man. What? I wanted to be that. I want to go. Not to say I wanted to slap a white man, but I'm just saying.
Right.
It's the narrative that allows us to see these things come to fruition. And I think we're getting to the point where even still, look how important the Cosby Show was to put a Black family in prominence. You have a doctor, you have a lawyer who are raising kids, raising their kids, and under the same roof. There's no, of course, there's hijinks and things of that nature, because that's what our families are made of. But it still was in such a positive light. It'd be dope to see, certain shows go back to that sort of foundation. Not to say, again, everything doesn't need to be peaceful and green, but show the different layers of what it is to be Black and in a Black family.
Right.
We have a lot of celebrities that talk about their Black pride and Black culture, and I think we're coming back to a time where our Black money's gotta put it where it counts, and we have to get back to a point like the Black exploitation era where we're making our own intentional content, and it really doesn't take a lot, but we have to have some people willing to put some money up, and we have it within the community. We do, but we have to get back to that. People gotta be willing to put up some money so that we can be intentional and create our own things that we know they're shaped properly.
And then to add to that, we have to make sure that we market these works, these pieces of content well.
Yeah.
Because I don't think all the time that our work is marketed well and on a scale that's acceptable, that is worthy, that we're really worthy of. Would you guys agree on that?
100%.
100%.
So let me ask the panel this.
Go ahead.
I feel like that even with the negative stereotypes and everything, that we can learn from those, because it gives us an opportunity, especially working with the youth. That's like dialogue to say, okay, what did you see in this character? What was it about this character that drew you to his negative?
Right.
So even with the negative characters, I still feel like it's a learning point. I understand, for us as an artist, we want more positive roles, but in the negative, there's still lessons that can be learned.
Yeah.
Tony, you bring up a good point. That is true. We can learn from these negative images. Yeah.
Because in reality, we have them.
Yeah, and it's real.
Yeah, real.
It's life.
It's not all positive. I mean, look at now. Everything isn't always 100% all glitz and glam. I mean, there is a cloud that hangs over all of our heads daily. We have to show that. We have to somehow turn that negative into a positive.
But to those points, I'm sorry to cut you off, Nick.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, to those points, you got to make sure even more so when you show the negative that it's authentic. Because I'm thinking right now in my head of many blaxploitation movies where you had these classically trained actors who, they couldn't talk in slang to save their lives. They were that educated, and they're playing junkies and pimps and things like that, and they're trying to talk in jive, but they can't. That's not in them. If we're gonna do the negative, we gotta make it authentic so that the people who lived it go, that's what it is right there. When you have an OG that sits next to you and sees a movie and says that's what it's like, that's when they've done something authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I agree. So you guys are talking about, we've addressed the entertainment industry. Stretch and Brandon. I know your industries are, kind of different. What are you seeing? I want to know from Brandon, why did you choose to start The Black Man Can? And for Stretch, I wanted you to talk about some of the things that you've seen working in radio, and as far as being a Black man and addressing some of those negative stereotypes, if there are any.
So the Black Man Can starts with MK Asante again. Once you make an observation, you have an obligation. So I started in 2010, but more so in the late 2000. 2000. When I was in school, I went to Morehouse, and I realized that Black men need to have positive images and need to have their stories told. And I couldn't find a place that was just about like the positive images and narratives. So that led me to create the Black Man Can. And so it's been an amazing journey over the last 10 years to build the organization to what it is now, so that we can create and amplify stories of what Black men and boys can do. When I think about the work, so Black Man Can is a nonprofit, so we do a lot of work across different communities across the country. And so tying that back to some of the youth specifically, what I find is like Tony mentioned it a little bit around, when I get into a room with a group of Black boys, in many cases, if I ask them what they want to be, I might get at least 50% of the answers will say, I want to be an athlete, or I want to be a rapper. Cool. And so for me, I actually don't have an issue with that. The reason why I don't is because I know that the images that they are oversaturated with on the internet, coupled with the idea that if you think about the idea of the human nature, period, is to want to be like celebrated and loved. And the only places you really see Black men celebrated and loved, they're on a field, a court, or a stage, right? So you just think about all that. It makes sense that, and then you're in a K through 12 education system that doesn't give you a positive self-identity development. But let's just put all that together. Yes, because I was one of them. I wanted to go to the league. I remember being in the 8th grade. You asked me what I was going to do. I'm going to the league, Mm-hmm. But what I've come to realize in the work that we're trying to do with our young men is that, again, it's not having an issue with that, because I can, even if you have that thought, I can translate that into work ethic, right? For one thing, because even if you do say you want to go to the league, you don't just, unless you're 7 feet, you don't just go to the league. You have to put the work in. There is a level of work ethic that you have to put together to be great. And I can translate that into other areas once I get an idea of what they want to do. Because everybody here has to speak about the work that they had to do to get to where they're at, right? Even an athlete would have to say, like, the practices and everything like that. But the bigger issue and what we're trying to tackle, though, with our young men is that I'll meet boys who, the other 50%, who don't say that, but they say, I want to be a lawyer, a doctor, a video game designer, a producer, right? They've been exposed to some of these things in some way. And a video game designer, I want to do that. But the difference between the two is that the ones that say they want to be an athlete and want to be an entertainer, they say it with the utmost confidence. See, that's what it is, right? You can't convince him he's not going to the league, right? But the boy who says I want to be a producer or a video game designer, it's like a pause. Like, I want to be a video game designer, but I don't know somebody that's done it. I don't know somebody. I don't get to see that, right? And that's one reason why the Black Man Can is important. Why we control and change the narrative is that our boys can constantly meet us, all of us, and who we are and what we do, and all the different men that we know and all the places and spaces that we walk in. And then that young man now doesn't have a pause. And when he says, I want to be a photographer, a video game designer, it's not a like, I want to do it, but I don't really believe it because I don't know somebody that looks like me. Right. And so that's one reason why the Black Man Can exist, is to curve that confidence and boost it to the highest levels, that a young man says, I want whatever they say they want to be. Let me introduce you to a Black male that's actually doing it and been successful. And then it might have taken him, like all of us, it might have taken us 20 steps to get to where we are. But we're going to make sure that this next young man coming up makes it in 10.
That's awesome, Brandon, that you are taking images that Black boys wouldn't normally see and posting that to to that Instagram page, because, they're heavily into that Instagram. So that's just, I think that's a perfect way to let young Black boys know that, hey, there are people exist. And I thank you and I appreciate you all. But for Brandon in this moment, noticing that these are what these kids are saying, and then going to do the research to find those images, to find those people that are actually in those fields. So that's we applaud you and we thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. So Stretch, what about you?
Repeat the question.
Okay, so we talked about the entertainment industry. I'm sorry. So now, what has been your experience in the radio industry, as far as maybe some pushback, maybe not being able to be expressive as a Black man? Or the competition, you may want to talk about the competition.
Yeah, well, Tony can chime in on this too if he wants to. Well, I think from the standpoint of just doing radio, like I've been doing it for 23 years. Like I started when I was 19 years. So I enjoy the aspect of being an advocate and also a parallel for the storytellers of these artists. Never really, I think, you know, it was fun in the early years, of course, when you had like competition and, you know, somebody across the street and this, that, and another. I mean, it's all in fun and games of trying to one up each other. But I never really thought there was a sense of any sort of pushback or anything like that when it came to things of that nature. I think sometimes, early on in my early years of radio, I think some of the things that I got pushback was when it came to like wanting to view myself or not even view myself, but make political stances or talk about certain things that may have been going on, because at the end of the day, you really have to kind of like toe the line, because you don't want to sway, you know, who's listening to you in the sense of, you know, playing one side against another. You're just there to just state the facts or tell a story as it is, and then let other people who are listening decipher which way they want to go. So, but there were some times where I was like, man, you know, back in the late 90s, I wish there was podcasting back then, because then I was like, I got something to get off my chest, but I can't say it, you know, on, you know, someone else's company's time, because then therefore, you know, my views would not align with, you know, with the company's, you know, views and things of that nature. So, I mean, I think that's pretty much a really like a prime example I can think of. But for the most part, no issues, more or less. I mean, you know, you want to add to that, Tony?
I was going to do it from the theater aspect. How a lot of times, you know, me growing up in the inner city, if you was in theater, sometimes people think you gay, you know, because they have this imagery of like, I remember when I first attended Morgan State University, I walk in the door and I hear somebody say, "Oh wow, we got a straight guy." Like, huh? I'm like, what does that mean? You know, because again, this was with the image of people that's in theater. And when you look at some of the people that come from schools like Howard University, that come from theater, Morgan State University, and all these other schools, you know, Denzel Washington, and went to Juilliard, Charles Dutton, grew up in East Baltimore, charged with murder. But again, the imagery is that, oh, if you're in theater, you're gay. So again, I love the platform of letting students know, like, yo, be yourself. Whether you're gay or you're not gay, don't let nobody make your decision on what you want to do. If this is what you want to do, like Brandon say it proudly, man, I'm a theater major. That's who I am. Don't be like, oh, I'm going to theater, you know, with no confidence, you know. And that's where so many times I think that when it comes to us as Black men, it's our responsibility to let these young men know, because, you know, it's just like with the no snitching. There's that imagery, like if you don't play basketball, you this. If you don't mess with a bunch of girls, you that. You know, so it's like, it's our responsibility to show them, like, look, man, it's okay not to mess with a bunch of girls. It's okay not to play sports. It's okay to play the violin or the flute or the theater, you know, tennis and that kind of stuff. All of these things are okay, you know, but we have to be that example with young men and women. Yeah, you know, so.
Okay, so how do we address the news?
It's the hardest question asked all day.
I'm sorry, Tyler. What did you say?
I said that's the hardest question asked all day.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you something I said the other day, and I said it was interesting to me how some of the Black media, when the Capitol incident took place, was very angry and spoke and said whatever they wanted, whether it was right, wrong.
Right.
But I noticed when we're being murdered, they tend to, I don't know if I want to throw myself under the bus and jump out there and say how I feel about these cops doing what they're doing, because I could lose my job or I could be reprimanded. So they tend to tone down a little more, which I was just like, wow, it was interesting. You know, I want, if we had more Black media that was that enthused when they see us being murdered and killed. And then it was interesting how they were able to locate these guys and lock them up right away. But when these cops killing us, it's like, you got the footage, but yet we still need to get more proof. And when it comes to us sometimes, and we have that media platform, we tend to not be so outspoken when it comes to Black men being murdered.
The news has been particularly troubling for me because everything we've been talking about, and especially right before this segment, talking about getting away to finding just being and helping transfer that down to the next generation of young Black men coming up, to let them just be, and to see the privilege put on display in the Capitol, just to see it in full effect, like, we just fighting to just be, and you're so privileged. Like, this is what you do with your anger. You literally do a treasonous federal crime of storming the Capitol. I saw videos of the way they were attacking guards, just trying to say, stay out of the building. It was so ugly. And I'm like, we're just fighting to just be. I don't even know what they're fighting for. I don't. And it's hard to address it because it's getting so chaotic now that I really can't understand what's going on and their motivations, their planning, what they think is happening, or how to really disseminate and break this down to a younger generation when they're asking what's going on. I've got nothing for them.
Tyler made a good comment, like the whole privilege, the whole white privilege. The whole news I've noticed and I've seen, I wish I would see more of this. Those of the Caucasian descent would speak up more, even have a platform saying LM movement. Would this have happened? Would the I guess with the pushback, or there be a lot more I guess casualties and injuries? And I wish more would say that, because that's like a white privilege thing. They're like, okay, we don't believe it. I've been on several sets and encountered several people that they don't believe it's white privilege. I'm like, how can you sit here and say that and form your lips saying that we don't believe it? Like, there's no such thing. I specifically asked certain people, so when you look at me, do you feel intimidated? Do you want to address me like how you want to address me? Or when you don't see somebody of my skin, how do you talk about us? The thing is, if you don't feel intimidated, then what do you think that is? I'm like, it's just all over the place. And I think I get frustrated when some people don't really realize that. And that it's like a double standard. If this were us, it'd be totally different. I know someone, like you were saying before, stand back and just sit there and look. I myself, I overanalyze and analyze. I want to see how people are going to move or how they're going to react before, because sometimes you want to go about it a different way. You want to go as if aggressively, but strategically smart. And I think for that matter, we have to go. I just wish the media would, I guess, those who have a platform would speak up even more, because if they're worried about us, our culture, people would have that light speaking up. Okay, so now that the tables are turned, why don't you speak up about it?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, just how you basically how that you may encounter, don't realize that they have white privilege. The fact that they sat there and said, "Well, I don't get it." That's white privilege within itself, because they're still kind of capitalizing off the fact that it's funny how when you look at the images that have been shown on television, it's kind of like how they always say, like, the chicken feeling, they feel a sense of loss, they let some dude sit up there and piper them and give them a bunch of fear mongering and letting them know that, you know, you're losing your country, this, and that, and the other. Like, but you know, to any of this country, unless you're Native American, you know, and you know, we all came from, whether we were forced or we came on our own, we all came here to live on this land. And the fact is that, you know, we still have some individuals out there who still have that sort of, you know, 1600, 1700 mindset of, you know, I'm here, you're here, and this is how it's going to rock out, because it's been rocking out for the past 300-400 years, and now they're starting to lose a little bit of that quote unquote flavor, in the sense of they don't know what to do. And then the crazy thing about it is not I'm not going to categorize, but not only do you have underprivileged who feel a sense of entitlement, you have some of these, you know, richer white folks who just want to continue to even browbeat their own, but also browbeat the, you know, people of color as well, so that they can stay up here. And it's just a wild and crazy situation that's going on. And I mean, I'm just appalled by the actions that happen. But then again, are we surprised? I mean, look who we had as the president for the past 4 years. His whole platform was to put fear in people and let them know, like, regardless of what happens, I was cheated out of this election. So, you know, he said that from the day one when he got up there. Like, if I lose in the next 4 years, you already know why. You know, so he pretty much set the precedent of where we are right now.
Yeah.
I feel like the best way to deal with the news cycle as a Black community is honestly not to deal with it, because that's one of those overcorrecting things. We're in 2021 now, and after the year we've had, and just how that year felt like many years put to it, our counterparts have started to do so much research, and you know, people getting woke, quote unquote. There's white people that will go to bat fiercely for us now, and I think it's time to let them. I don't think we need to step up and combat the news cycle, what's going on, the privilege, because there's enough non-Black people that are waking up and combating it. And it really is their problem in their turn to wake up and fight it so fiercely. As we move forward, putting energy into new stuff properly, the deals, the friendships, relationships with non-Black people, they'll learn on a personal level that if they want to stay involved, that they have to step up their involvement. So I feel like that's a better solution, is allowing non-Black people to handle that. The ones that participate within our community, the ones that are involved, the ones that say they love us and show, let them combat with CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Let them combat the wrong things being shown. Let them argue, because I love when they argue privilege and they go back and forth, and you see a heated debate between two opposing ideas between white people on privilege. Let them argue those things, because we don't need to waste any more time talking about things that we've been talking about for decades, if not hundreds of years. We could be doing so many things in the background while they're arguing that. But I just love the energy of them being allies and allowing our allies to fight, because it frees us up to be free and not be angry and not be just talking about privilege, not just talking about, well, the way they treated them versus the way they treated us. We know, but I love it when they bring it up. When it was non-Black people saying and tweeting, well, if this was Black Lives Matter, that was what I loved, and that was the point, because now they see it. Now they see it and they're saying it. Because no one's hearing it when we say it.
Right. Exactly. Well, gentlemen, that is our time. But before we go, tell our listeners how they can connect with you, Tony.
I'm on Facebook, Tony RQOTD, which is question of the day. Instagram, T Roberts Enterprise, Theater Stage Lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can connect with me on my IG at DopeSense76 Media. That's my company, but also hit me up on my personal at Stretch G. And I would highly suggest everybody pick up my book, Last Request. My novel is about a radio personality in Baltimore, where I'm from. So definitely check it out and listen to me on WHUR on Sundays from 2 to 7. Thanks.
Thank you. Brandon.
Brandon Frame again. You can check me out, the Black Man Can at Brandon Frame. You can head over to theblackmancan.com if you want to get some merchandise. We got merchandise. The discount code for all the guests here today, as well as everybody tuned in, is #King10. #King10. Go to the Black Man Can. Go to the store. Buy out all the gear. It all goes back to the nonprofit, so we continue to do the work that we do. Blackmancan.com. You can check us out there at Brandon Frame, at the Black Man Can, as we just continue to push our mission forward of amplifying, creating stories of what Black men and boys can do.
Nick.
My government name is Nicholas. You can find me on Facebook, Nicholas Reeves. IG is NR_sport21. Those are the main handles I am on and currently using. So feel free to slide in DMs professionally. But otherwise, those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Tyrone.
You can reach me on Facebook, Ty Baker Jr., and my new website will be up very soon at recapcreative.com. So if you guys are looking to create, just give me a shout and let's get creating together.
Yes, Tyler.
The best place to find and reach me is on my Instagram, Malachi the Miracle Child. It's a whole mouthful, but if you've read your Bible, you know how to spell it.
That's right. So thank you, gentlemen, for contributing your thoughts and ideas and for doing your part in changing the narrative. And lastly, for keeping your commitment by being a part of the show. That means a lot. If you enjoyed the show, please let us know. We would love to shout you out and post your comment. If you or someone you know is changing the narrative, please contact us at iChangeTheNarrative@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. See you next Saturday at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks so much.